If you have been reframing your DJI Avata 360 or Osmo 360 footage inside DJI Studio or on your phone, I have bad news for you. You are destroying the very thing you pay for. The 10-bit color, the 8K resolution, the dynamic range, all gone, compressed away before your video even hit Instagram or YouTube. And here is the worst part. Most tutorials out there, including the official one from DJI, will lead you straight into the same mistake. I have been testing the new DJI Reframe plugin for DaVinci Resolve side by side at 600% zoom, and the differences is nice and day. So in this tutorial, I will walk you through the correct pro workflow, edit page, color page, and fusion page, so you keep every single pixel of the image quality from the camera to social media. Let me start with the most important question. Why reframe with the DJI Reframe plugin inside DaVinci Resolve instead of just using the DJI Studio software? Here is the short answer. Image quality. Most of the time, you are not posting straight out of the DJI Studio. You are bringing your reframed 360 footage back into a NLE, DaVinci Resolve, Adobe Premiere, and cutting it together with another 4K footage before it goes to the social media. You render in DJI Studio first, then render again in your NLE. You are stacking HEVC compression on top of HEVC compression. And DJI Studio currently has no lawless export format like ProRes, so every render is destroying the pixel. Using the DJI plugin directly inside Resolve, you skip that middle step entirely. No intermediate render, your source file stay untouched all the way until your final export. Now, you might be thinking, okay, but I only render once in the DJI Studio and post straight to Instagram. Is that really that different? Well, let me show you. On the left, we have direct 1080p render from the DJI Studio. On the right, same shot, reframe using the DJI plugin inside DaVinci Resolve Studio. Let me zoom in 600%. Look at the DJI Studio result. You can see the action camera compression artifacts all over it. Now look at the center of the focal chart. The line is bending. That is a clear indication of clarity loss and image quality loss. So no matter what your workflow is, reframing in DaVinci Resolve with the latest DJI OpenFX plugin will give you the absolute best image quality. And it does not stop there. This is also the only way to properly color grade your 10-bit D-Log-M footage, which is the whole reason you bought the DJI OSMO 260 or the Avata 260 in the first place. The better coloring pipeline. That is why this plugin release is such a big deal. The Osmo 260 and the Avata 260 finally make sense for professional work. But there is a big catch. You will not get any of this image quality if you are using the free version of DaVinci Resolve. You will need DaVinci Resolve Studio, the paid version. And before you close this tab, it is still cheaper than Adobe Premiere or CapCut. And it's a one-time purchase. So in my opinion, it is still worth it. Now, if you still do not want to pay for the studio, that is totally fine. I already made a full tutorial on using the GoPro Reframe plugin inside Fusion, which work on both the free version and the paid studio version. I link it up here. It's a bit more complicated, but it will save you some money. Quick pause here. My boss Kim just walked right in and reminded me I forgot to ask for a like and a follow. So if this non-sponsor, non-marketing BS tutorial is saving your footage, hit that like button or Kimchi get no treat tonight. And that one is on you. Now, let's get back to the tutorial. The DJI Reframe plugin only works with DJI camera. So sorry Insta360 or GoPro owners, this pathway is not for you. Also, there is no direct camera to Resolve import. You still have to turn your raw footage through the DJI Studio first. But here's the good news. This step is completely lawless. You are keeping 100% of your source image quality, so this is just a preparation step, not a compression step. Make sure you have updated to the latest version of DJI Studio. Then import your footage from your Osmo 260 or Avata 260, trim down to just the section you need. This will save you a lot of storage later. Now go to the video tab, select free view, and make sure rock steady is checked so your stabilization is baked into the footage. Jump over to the image tab, set your chromatic aberration control. This one is mostly for Avata 360 right here, and if you want to know exactly why and how, I broke that down in my full Avata 360 review right here. I always use high precision smart stitching. Now go to the adjustment tab, turn off color recovery and turn off basic correction. Here's why. We want the raw, untouched 10-bit D-Log-M coming out of the camera. This is the whole point. We are going to color grade this footage in DaVinci Resolve using my simple 360 color pipeline. And if you let DJI Studio apply any color correction first, you are baking that decision into the file that you cannot undo later. Now hit export. Choose panoramic video, media type, DaVinci Resolve format, resolution 8K, frame rate match whatever your camera capture. Turn off noise reduction. I know this might look counterintuitive. The noise reduction in DJI Studio is not that great. It is the #1 reason your Avata 360 footage looks soft. Most tutorials out there get this wrong because they never actually test the workflow and just follow whatever DJI push in front of them. We test this rigorously, and the answer is apply professional noise reduction inside DaVinci Resolve instead. Resolve has an AI-powered plugin called Ultra NR that is 1,000 times better. It is the same kind of noise reduction that Netflix and HBO trust on their big production. So turn DJI's NR off and we will handle it properly in DaVinci Resolve later. Turn on 10-bit color. Now for Avata 360, you will see an extra setting here called direction lock. It is on by default. I recommend turning it off. Here's why. Direction lock burns the fly direction of your drone straight into the footage, which means later in Resolve, your reframe direction is already decided for you. And personally, I want to make that decision based on the storytelling, not based on which way the drone happened to be pointing at. So I uncheck this. It gives me full creative control later. That said, this one is a personal preference. Test it both ways, find the workflow that fits how you should. Alright, hit export now. Now, download and install the DJI Reframe plugin for DaVinci Resolve and bring in your exported MP4 files. From here, you have two workflows. You can edit the reframe directly inside the edit page, or you can reframe inside Fusion page. Both work, both have pros and cons, and neither of them is properly explained in the official DJI tutorial. In fact, I want to be very direct here. If you follow the official DJI tutorial exactly the way they show it, your final video is going to look soft. And that is why this tutorial is so important, so you do not waste your 8K footage. Let me explain the actual problem. This is the same limitation we hit before in my older reframe tutorial with Carterverse Reframe Ultra. Since DaVinci Resolve version 19, the edit page and the Fusion page handle resolution routing differently, and this is not a bug, it is by design. Blackmagic built it in this way for performance optimization. And here is what that means in practice. If you create a 1080p or 4K timeline, which most people do, because their final video is going to be either 1080p or 4K on YouTube or Instagram or TikTok, your edit page working resolution is locked at just that, even if your source footage is 8K. So the moment you drop in your 8K DJI footage, Resolve scale it down to 1080p or 4K before you even start reframing. You are reframing inside a 1080p or 4K canvas, and then you are exporting at that as well, which means all those extra pixels you thought to keep, gone completely. You pay for an 8K camera and you just use it like a 1080p or 4K camera. Let me show you what this actually looks like. On screen here, 3 versions of the exact same shot. Left, the result if you follow the official DJI tutorial. Middle, the result using my edit page workflow. Right, the result using my Fusion page workflow. Look at the DJI version. Soft, full of aliasing artifacts. Now look at mine. Same source file, same camera, completely different output. If your reframed footage look like this version on the left, you are doing it wrong. And the good news is, it is a 5-minute fix. Let me show you exactly how. Edit page workflow. Here is the fix, and it is shockingly simple. Instead of creating a 1080p timeline like the official tutorial show you, we are going to create a 8K timeline. Right-click inside the edit page, go to timeline and create new timeline. In window that pops up, uncheck use project settings. Now go to format, change the resolution to 760/80 by 3840, that is 8K. This footage was shot on the Avata 360, so I'm keeping the frame rate at 60 frames per second. Then jump down to mismatched resolution, set it to stretch frame to all corners. Important, do not skip that one. Now drop in your DJI Studio render file, trim it down to the section you actually want. Go to the effects panel here, make sure you are on the OpenFX tab, search for DJI Reframe and drop it onto your footage. Now look at the reframe resolution setting. This is where you choose your final output. If you are cutting this together with another 8K footage for YouTube cinematic release, choose 4K 16:9, 3840 by 2160. For this drone shot, I am reframing for Instagram Reel and TikTok, so I'm picking 1080p vertical. Okay, now we get to the fun part. We are about to use Resolve Keyframe panel to actually reframe our 360 footage. Ignore the black bar around the frame for now, we will fix that later, promise. First step, set the global fly direction on the source file using pan. Quick tip here, use source file reframe for things like global alignment or horizon leveling. Do not add keyframe at this stage. Keep it as your global control. Think of this as your master setting before you start animation. Now go to the camera operation panel, add keyframe at the start of your shot, then move your playhead to right before you flying through the tree and add another set of keyframes. By the way, if you want to remove all facial distortion to match your 2D camera, just dial distortion control to 0 and now the footage look like shot on an iPhone or a regular lens. And here is the secret setting DJI tutorial missed that unlock on-screen control. Open this drop down right here and select OpenFX Overlay. Now you have full on-screen control, exactly like what you get inside the Adobe Premiere DJI plugin. You can drag the viewer directly to reframe. Scroll on this section right here to roll the camera. Scroll on this section right here to zoom in and zoom out. Everything live right in the viewer. You are not getting tips like this anywhere out on the internet because we care. We want to make your life easier as a creator. So support us by subscribing and drop Kimchi a thank you comment down below. And look at that, the reframe motion looks fantastic. DJI add ECE into each keyframe automatically for you, so your motion feels smooth right out of the box. Okay, once you are happy with your reframe, the next step is cinematic color grading. This Avata 360 footage I have been demoing, it was actually shot in Rec 709, ready to go, which means it does not need color grading at all. And here's the lesson in that. You do not always need to shoot in D-Log-M, especially with a small center 360 drone. Look, I love this camera, but even with the 1-inch sensor, 360 drone footage does not have the same dynamic range latitude you get on a DJI OSMO Pocket or the Mavic Pro. So most of the time, you do not actually need D-Log-M. You can shoot Rec 709 with good exposure setting with your eyes and skip this entire color grading session and still walk away with decent looking footage. The real risk is the opposite. You shoot in D-Log-M, you do not have the color grading skill to handle it, and now you are breaking your color in post by introducing banding. This is when D-Log-M actually hurt you. So be realistic about your skill level. Okay, with that disclaimer out of the way, let me show you the full professional color grading workflow. I am starting a fresh project right here, and this time I am using DJI OSMO 360 footage that's shot at D-Log-M. First, project setting. Set your color management to DaVinci Wide Gamut for the timeline color space and DaVinci Intermediate. Output color space, Rec 709 Gamma 2.4. This match my color grading monitor. You should match whatever you are mastering on. Same as before, create a 8K timeline, join in your OSMO 360 D-Log-M footage, drop in DJI Reframe, set the output to 1080p vertical. Now jump over to color page. This is where it gets fun. Create two nodes. Label the first one to input CST, label the second one to output CST. On each one, drop in the color space transform effect. On the input CST, set the input color space to DJI D Gamut. Input gamma, Rec 709. Output color space, DaVinci wide gamut, and output gamma, DaVinci intermediate. That brings your footage from camera color space into your working color space. The output CSC is just to the reverse. Input DaVinci Resolve wide gamut and intermediate, output Rec 709 gamut 2.4. That sends your final image to your delivered color space. Now, pay close attention here. This is where most tutorials get it wrong. The DJI OSMO 260 and the Avata 260 do not capture in DJI D-Log. They only capture in D-Log M. And D-Log M is basically Rec 709. Remember earlier, when we export from DJI Studio, the output was forced to SDR Rec 709. And that was not an accident. That is what the camera actually delivered. So a lot of the tutorials out there are setting their input CSC to DJI D-Log. That is wrong. Use DJI D gamut with Rec 709 gamut. And that is the correct setting. Alright, now the actual color grading. I'm gonna give you the easiest, most reliable color pipeline for any DJI 360 camera. 4 nodes, that's it. Do not overcomplicate things. This is still an action 360 camera at the end of the day. And the moment you start pulling out the qualifier, you will start breaking your footage and create bending. Even though DJI is advertising 10-bit, keep it simple. 4 nodes only. No one exposure. Look at the scope here. At first glance, it looks well exposed, but here is a trap with 360 color grading. The scope is only reading what is inside your reframe view, the 1080p window. It is not reading the full sphere. So if your current reframe is pointing away from the sun, your scope looks beautiful. But the second you reframe somewhere else in the shot and point to the sun, the highlight will blow out. And you will never know it from the scope you were just looking at. And this is the fundamental shift in 360 color grading. You are not just grade what is on the screen, like traditional 2D footage. You have to think in full 360. So here's what I do. I go back to the edit page, pan the source view directly into the sun, into the hardest part of the whole sphere. Now check the scope again. Look, the highlights are clips. So I'm bringing exposure down using the HDR global view right here. That protects the brightest part of the sphere, which means now every possible reframe direction in the shot is safe, including the one to the sun. You might be wondering how I am dialing in this value so precisely. I am using a Toolbox Elite controller. It has this feature where I am hovering my mouse over any value inside DaVinci Resolve. I can dial it in with the physical knob. Smooth, precise adjustment. Basically give me the experience of a Blackmagic color grading panel without the Blackmagic price tag. No to contract. I'm using curve here and I am actually doing the opposite of what most people do. Instead of an S-curve, I am doing an inverted S-curve by bringing the contrast down. First step, click my face in the viewer to lock the middle point so the skin tone stay where that should be. Then I gradually reverse the curve. DJI 360 camera tend to come in way too contrast out of the camera, so we are pulling that back. Node 3, saturation. Same idea here, the default look is oversaturated, so I bring the saturation down using the HDR global right here. 3 nodes in, the image should already look well balanced. Now the final node. Node number 4, the look. This is where I drop in my own Hugh DJI 360 cinematic LUT. Just drop it onto the node, then go to the key tab right here and dial the key output gain down to around 0.4. That makes the LUT back at 40% strength, so you get that cinematic feel without overpowering the grade you already did. And that's it! 4 nodes! By the way, if you want my Hugh DJI 360 cinematic LUT, it is completely free for Kimchi member. Link in the description down below. Now, remember those black bar I told you earlier to ignore? Time to fix them. Right-click on your reframe footage, select Render in Place. A setting window will pop up. Copy what I have on screen exactly. Hit Render. Now, important, this is not a destructive workflow. If you change your mind about the reframe at any point, wrong direction, bad keyframing, or want to just redo the whole thing, just right-click on the clip again and select Decompose to Original. And you are right back to the DJI Reframe plugin with all your original keyframe intact. Nothing is locked in here. That is what makes this workflow safe. Now, for the final delivery step, create a new timeline. This time, set the resolution to your actual delivery format. For this shot, I'm going to Instagram and TikTok, so I'm setting it to 1080p vertical. One critical setting, mismatch resolution here, set it to center crop with no resizing. Do not skip that. Now, copy your render in place clip from your 8K timeline into the new 1080p timeline. And look at that, the black bars are gone. From here, this is your delivery timeline. Cut in your other 2D camera footage, add your subtitle, build your sound design, then export the final 1080p for Instagram and TikTok, YouTube, or whatever. Okay, pause for a second. Look at what we just did here. This entire workflow happened inside the edit page. No other 360 reframe solution let you stay in just the edit page like this. This is the easiest way to reframe 360 footage in DaVinci Resolve right now. But it is not perfect yet. If you look closely at the animation, you will notice the transition between keyframes are slightly stiff. Let's not settle. We can fix that by enable keyframe velocity control inside the edit page. Here is the trick. Open the keyframe panel, click these three dots right here, uncheck video and audio. We do not have any animation on those tracks. Check DJI Reframe, then check display parameters with the keyframes. Then clean out all the noise and give you a clear view of just the keyframe we actually care about. Now, important, make sure every curve is enabled. By default, OpenFX keyframe curves are turned off. And that's why most editors think you cannot do this in the edit page. You can, you just have to switch them on first. When your curves are visible, select all the keyframes you created, apply smoothing to the whole animation, just like that. The stiffness is gone. The motion is natural, and if you want even more control, you can grab any curve and shape and easing manually right here. Very powerful stuff. So honestly, you do not have to go into Fusion to reframe if you do not want to. The edit page can take you all the way, but Fusion are more powerful. Once you get a hang of it, it's actually faster. Fusion workflow. Here is the first thing to know about Fusion. We do not need that two timeline walk around from the edit page anymore. None of it. Fusion handles resolution differently. It is designed for exactly this kind of work. Think of it as a resource built in After Effects. And before you panic, for what we are doing here, Fusion is crazily easy. Stick with me and you will get it in less than 5 minutes, I promise. Create a new timeline. This time, set it to your output resolution, 1080p vertical. Right click on the footage and select Open in Fusion page. If you do not see two windows, click here. Select Media in number 1. Hit Shift plus Spacebar to bring up the search menu. Search for DJI Reframe. Add it to the node tree. Click this output dot to send DJI Reframe to window number 1. Now you can drag to reframe just like you learned before. Make sure you are at the start of the video, change resolution to your delivery resolution, and reframe as you like. Here is the benefit of Fusion. You have full control over how every keyframe behaves. The keyframe panel and the curve editing panel both work in Fusion. One easy trick to make your animation look professional and smooth. Open the curve editing panel if that's not open already. Hit this button here to show all keyframes. Check all the DJI keyframes. Ctrl plus A to select them all. Hit smooth curve right here. And just like that, your animation looks super smooth. You can refine each curve handle individually for more control. If your playback gets laggy, right click here and turn off high quality and motion blur to speed up the preview.
But Hugh, our media out is still in 8K.
Good catch, Kimchi. So we add one more node after DJI Reframe. Search for crop node. Put window number 1 on the crop node now. Open the inspector. Check keep centered. Change the X and Y size to your output resolution, which is 1080 by 1920. Done! Output resolution is correct! Go back to your edit page. Image quality is the best. Animation is smooth and professional. Now go to the deliver page. Export format. Choose MP4, codec, H.264 or make concept H.264 if you are on the latest Resolve 21 or on a PC. Bitrate, I use 20,000 kbps. Increase that if you have really fast Avata 360 footage with a lots of moving pixel. One critical setting right here, uncheck optimize for speed. Very important. Now hit export. Congratulations! You just unlocked the pro skill for getting the absolute best looking 360 reframe footage out of your DJI Osmo 360 or DJI Avata 360. Take a second to appreciate that. Most people who buy this camera never get past their phones or DJI Studio. They post compressed, soft, washed out footage to Instagram and assume this is just what the camera can do. You now know better. You know how to protect every single pixel from camera to platform. And we are not stopping here. In the next tutorial, I'm going to teach you the full immersive 360 workflow, advanced color grading for challenging lighting, and a bunch of shooting tips and tricks. Subscribe so you don't miss it. Look, we're putting a lot of love into this tutorial. A lot. The kind of professional reframe workflow you just learned did not even exist on YouTube until now. And I know how this goes, right? Give it a few weeks, the copycats will come. Same thing happened with my older 360 reframe tutorial. People will repackage this whole workflow without even testing it, without sourcing where their knowledge comes from, and without caring whether your footage looks good or not. Most of them just want that sponsorship paycheck and no shame to steal, probably using AI. And that is fine, totally fine, because I'm not interested in being a gatekeeper. I do not want to be the guy who holds all the knowledge. What I actually want is for you to go out there with your 360 camera and make something incredible, something that nobody else could have made, something that earned its place on the screen and is better than those AI slop. And that is the entire point of teaching this for free. So if this tutorial helped you, here is how you can help us back. Hit the like button, subscribe to this channel, and share this video with one creator friend who is shooting 360 and getting frustrated with their footage. Just one, and that is how good information actually moves. Sharing is loving, and that's how we raise the bar of the content creation together. I will see you in the next tutorial. Ciao, my friend.